This organization fights for underdogs and for people who've been cheated, for people who are the victims of pollution, people who've been hurt in all sorts of different ways. So we deal with a lot of cases involving corporate abuse, so cases of predatory lending, cases of gender and race discrimination, cases where companies cheat people, bait and switch, that sort of thing. And we deal with a lot of cases where corporations or governments have abused people, have used their power to harm people in really serious ways. We deal with a lot of cases involving pollution, and we particularly try and focus on really serious types of pollution that actually threaten the sustainability of the earth.
Public justice is about giving access to justice to people that don't have political and economic power. And with environmental cases, the way we do that is we bring citizen suits. We pick up where the government has failed, and we get remedies which are more broad-based and force the company and the state government to follow the law. Mountaintop removal is an enormously destructive practice. Mountains are leveled, valleys are filled with rock, streams are polluted. And the government agencies are basically in the hands of the corporate interests. And we were the first ones to challenge a mountaintop removal mine in Appalachia. The result was we forced them to stop that one mine that we first sued over. We forced the government to issue the first ever environmental impact statement on the regional effects of mountaintop removal mining in Appalachia. The primary harm in Appalachia is to streams that are receiving the coal mining waste. At Hanford, we have workers who are trying to clean up the results of our construction of nuclear weapons over a 50-year period.
We're standing above the most contaminated piece of soil in the United States. It's where plutonium was made for the nuclear arsenal for the Cold War and for the bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki.
The whole job is cleanup. So when you start talking about transferring chemical waste from one tank to another or to other places to get treated so we can try to get rid of it, the whole process involves workers coming in contact with either the waste or the vapors or the product of those chemical reactions.
I smelled something and it was stronger than normal. And I didn't think a lot of it. It wasn't something that concerned me at the time. I just left the area. And it was a couple hours later that my lungs started just closing. It was just hard to breathe. I just kept getting worse to where I could hardly walk across the room. It just felt like somebody was standing on my chest all the time. Before this happened to me, I was very active. My life has changed a lot. I get up every day, and the first thing I do is I use my nebulizer and I take medicine to be able to breathe. That my life didn't have to end up like this, because they knew about it. They could have prevented it.
My late husband, Gary, he worked in the tank farms. He worked around the tank farms. They were not given masks to wear or any sort of protection. The first thing we noticed as a family is he wasn't following the conversation, and then his forgetfulness. And the test came back that he had toxic poisoning of the brain. Hanford killed my husband, and they don't care.
The DOE and the contractor refused to credit. In fact, they've set up their whole system to not even look. Public justice has lawyers with expertise in this area of law. And without them, we couldn't have probably brought this case so effectively. This case will bring systemic change, not only for the workers at Hanford today, but the many thousands and thousands of workers that will be conducting this cleanup, for decades to come. It's invaluable to have public justice on our side on this.
My name is Francisco Castaneda. I am from El Salvador.
Late in 2005, Francisco Castaneda was taken into California state custody on a drug charge, and he was there for about 4 months. He was then transferred to federal immigration detention and was held there for about 11 months. During the 15 months that he was in federal and state custody, he complained about a lesion that he had on his penis that was getting increasingly painful and growing in size. And he was seen by numerous medical professionals while he was in custody, all of whom said that he urgently needed a biopsy to rule out penile cancer. But in the 15 months that he was in custody, he never got that biopsy. So when he was finally released from federal custody, he got the biopsy on his own, but it was too late. The cancer had already spread, and physicians tried desperately to save his life by amputating his penis and giving him chemotherapy. But within a year of that treatment, he died. The federal district court judge said that the medical treatment that Francisco received transcended negligence by miles and was beyond cruel and unusual punishment. He put a face on the deplorable treatment that immigration detainees were receiving. And as a result of that, the Washington Post and 60 Minutes did a joint investigative piece on detention in America. The detainee health care policies were changed. The federal government actually changed detainee health care so that it would now apply to urgent medical needs and not just emergency care.
Behind me sits the Laredo Webb County Jail, where Rafael Solis lost his life at the hands of the Webb County jailers. He was initially picked up on charges of failing to pay his child support. He was not convicted of any felonies, had no prior record.
My dad was a truck driver. On his days off, he would take us outside, my brother and I, maybe working on his car, maybe throwing a football, throwing a baseball. He taught me a lot of things. He was always there for me, always.
Initially, upon being detained, he suffered a seizure. That seizure was ignored and placed into confinement. Subsequent to that, there was at least 4 uses of force by the Webb County jailers. The last one involved up to 6 to 7 jailers pinning him onto the floor where they all piled up on him.
He had boot marks on his back. He had contusions all over his body. None of these things were present when he arrived in the jail. And the county coroner and the Texas Rangers who investigated the case concluded that it was a homicide.
As is often the case, the defendants don't like to go to trial. So they do everything in their power to prohibit a trial before a jury of our peers. I knew that the extreme talent that public justice has. We have some of the best legal minds and legal talent in the entire country. Public justice is at the core of bringing national attention to socially significant cases such as this one that'll make a difference not only locally, statewide, but also nationally.
Yo quiero justicia. Quiero justicia. Yo no ando buscando otra cosa más que sea la justicia por las personas que hicieron el crimen, porque es un crimen. Que son ustedes, y gracias a ustedes me han regresado la fe.
Government officials have a duty to protect the people that are in their custody, and they did the opposite of that with Rafael Solis and Francisco Castaneda. And as a result, both men are now dead. This is not something that's supposed to happen in our society.
I'm very optimistic that our organization is going to become stronger and better and more thoughtful as we undertake the fights that we have to come.
And I think this 35-year is just the stepping stones for the next 35 years. We've built a fantastic foundation built on the cases and the lawyers within the firm and the leadership and the membership. We have a vast membership of lawyers all dedicated to the same goals of public interest and making a difference in the future.
Almost every day when I come into this office, I encounter something incredibly unfair that's happened to somebody who's been cheated, discriminated against, abused, had pollution come in and destroy their living space. And I get to work with incredibly smart people who are inspired, who love the fight of going after the wrongdoers and trying to fix it. I get to work with extremely smart, committed people who are dying to go out and undertake these challenges. Every time you win a victory for justice in this world, it doesn't stay won for very long. The people who want the world to be more unfair, the people who want to make a profit by cheating, by polluting, by discriminating, are back at it the next day coming up with new strategies. So nothing that we ever do is final. It's always an ongoing process. It's always an ongoing fight that you have to keep at it.